invest in people in the long term, there has to be a mutual understanding.
Hustle hard, hustle hard. Closed mouths don't get fed. Thinking strategically, but acting like a gorilla is the kind of marketing that's small. When it innovates very little, it's highly risk averse, and it takes the
Every time I watch that video, it's an awkward silence and he waits to respond. And I almost envision the old Steve Jobs coming out and telling that guy exactly how he feels and how smart Steve Jobs is and how that guy has no business being in the room with him. And for whatever reason, just because I know what I know about Steve Jobs, I know that's in him. But he was able to tame that beast and integrate it into his personality and say, you know what, like Angela said, I'm intelligent, but brilliance says, let me taper that down. Let me build empathy for the person over here. Let me create a steel man from that argument. Let me understand his perspective. Let me acknowledge it and respect him in the presence of all of these people around me. And let me answer this question like a true brilliant leader, the way that, you know, that my divinely inspired gift has given me. So yes, that is certainly a lesson that I hope everyone takes away. In the face of criticism, we have a choice. Like the guy Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there's a gap. And in that gap is transcendence. And that gap is your option to choose how you respond. And I think Steve Jobs very wisely chose the right response, whereas in the past, he may have not chosen that. The space. It's a Viktor Frankl quote. I can give you the proper quote if I had it in front of me. But Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he talked about between every stimulus trigger and a response, how I respond to it, there's a space, and in that space is our option to choose, and it's a powerful option that we have to choose our response. Something happened, space, response. That space is everything. That's where we live as leaders. What do we do in that space to decide how we're going to respond? How am I supposed to answer that question if I don't know who you are? Am I one of you? So this is called the big five personality traits. And it's important to understand because I think you're going to run up against this at other times in your career. And I think your next assignment is going to be your leadership self-assessment. And all of you have the opportunity, if you like this, to do I think it's called it's like Peterson's Big Five or something like that. It's a great one and it's fairly cheap and it breaks these things down for you. And you can learn more about what personality traits you have according to these big five. And by the way, in social science, these big five personality traits have been the most demonstrated personality traits that keep emerging. Like almost all social scientists, psychologists, and neurologists alike agree that these factors all play a role in people's behavior. So this is more of a trait approach, meaning it's more you're sort of born with it. You can change over time, but what's most important is that you're self-aware of who you are, so you know how to act in certain environments based on your own strengths and weaknesses. So this is one of my favorites, and I want to talk about it just for a moment because I think we can all relate to it. I had the privilege of studying the Big Five as a part of my dissertation process to get a doctoral degree, and it's changed my life ever since. I think my wife is quite annoyed with me because I use these terminologies all the time, and I'm walking around and I'm diagnosing people's Big Five personality characteristics, but please don't judge me. So let's start with openness. What this is really is openness to experience. It's the degree of intellectual curiosity, creativity, and a preference for novelty. Novelty is newness. So I'll give you an example. You go to a new town, a new place. You've never been to this place before. You have to get on a plane. So you have to leave your routine that you have here established in your life. You get to get on a plane that's controlled by somebody else. You have no control. And you fly into an area or a city you've never been to. You don't know where the hotel is. You have to Google Maps it. You arrive at a hotel you've never visited. You meet people you've never seen. You eat at a restaurant you've never been to. And you stay in a place for 2 or 3 days that is completely foreign to you. There's some people, as I'm explaining that right now, that sounds awesome. They are curious. They're inventive. That would be paradise for them. There's some people in this room, and those people that would be paradise are high on trait openness. It's like a scale of 1 to 10. I'll kind of mark it here. High on trait openness would be a 10 right here, and consistent and cautious would be low on trait openness, and that would be a 1 or a 0. Those some of you fall really high. That would be awesome. I'd love to travel and experience what you just articulated, Professor Kershner. That sounds great. And some of you are like, absolutely not. I don't want to go to a place I've never known. I've never been before. I'm a little weary of staying in a hotel I've never been before. I don't like eating at new restaurants. I like to go to my same restaurant I go to every Friday night. You get the idea. So you can gauge yourself on this, but these are differences in people's one of the big five factors of personality. And openness to experience is one of them. The second one is conscientiousness. Kind of difficult to spell, but as you continue saying it with practice, you can get it right. Conscientiousness, when I think about conscientiousness, I think about waiters in high-end restaurants. A waiter in a high-end restaurant is extremely efficient and organized. They approach your table with tact and they know what they're going to do. They don't do anything without intention. They are orderly and industrious is another way to look at a person who's conscientious. And so you're proper and you're put together and you have everything in your places on your desk. You're conscientious, orderly and industrious, also efficient and organized. Some people are saying that's me. I'm super orderly and industrious. And some people are more easygoing. Some people are more careless. Some people don't necessarily have an agenda every time they go somewhere. Some people have papers on their desk from last week that they've never gotten to, but they've just been kind of sitting there quasi in the way, but who cares? And so you fit somewhere on this continuum. Those of us who are highly efficient, organized, highly orderly and industrious versus people who are a little bit more laid back, a little bit more careless, a little bit more easygoing. That's the trait of conscientiousness. It's a fun one. Another fun one is extroversion. Extroversion, what's the opposite of extroversion? The introvert. And this is one of those things that now that I know what I know, it's difficult for me to say when I hear people say, I'm an extrovert or I'm an introvert. There's no bona fide extrovert or introvert. Yeah, there might be a few, but it's a small percentage. What happens is you have a tendency towards more extroverted behavior, or you have a tendency towards more introverted behavior. Doesn't mean you can just, it's not binary. It's not like introvert, extrovert. It's somewhere on the continuum. So I'll give you an idea. Quick story. In the morning, you wake up and you decide that you're going to live your day. So you have a bag next to you, and that bag is empty. It's got nothing in it. It's a bag with nothing in it. And your goal by the end of the day is to put coins into your bag. So you wake up in the beginning of the day, you got no coins in your bag. You see some text messages on your phone, and you respond to them right away. Oh, somebody wants to talk to me. So you start texting them back. You engage in a little text conversation before you leave the house. You put some bags in your coin. You just got filled up there because of this exchange. On your way to work, you stop at the local deli and you say hi to the person behind the counter, and they ask you how you doing, and you have a little small conversation with the person at the deli behind the counter. They make you your favorite breakfast sandwich, and man, you just put some more coins in your bag because you just had a social experience. You're around a bunch of people and you got to talk to a friend you haven't seen in a little while, and you know their name, they know your name. Great experience, bags in your coin. On your way now to work, now that you have your breakfast sandwich, you call your grandma or your grandpa you haven't talked to in a while, and you have this great conversation with them, and maybe they didn't pick up, but you leave a message, you just let them know you're thinking about them, you wanted to talk to somebody on your way to work. You get to work and you say hello to everybody at every cubicle on your way to your work, and you're putting coins in your bag the whole time. And there's a birthday party that day at work. And who do you think's leading the birthday party singing process? It's you. You're excited about the birthday party. So as you can tell, you go throughout your day, and every exchange you have, you're putting more and more coins in your bag. So by the end of the day, you go home and your bag is full. You're happy, you're uplifted, you had interactions with a bunch of people. Being around people gives you energy. What do you think I just described there? Somebody who's introverted or extroverted? Somebody who's extroverted. Just look at it as the more social interactions you have with somebody, you're putting more coins in your bag. Somebody who's introverted wakes up in the morning with a set of coins in their bag. And in the morning, they wake up, they get out of bed. This is the best part of their day, maybe. They're like, it's quiet, it's peaceful. I could hear the birds. I don't have a bunch of people running around. And they go and get their phone, and they say, you know what? I'm not gonna look at my phone right now. I don't want to deal with my phone. I'm gonna go for a walk without my phone. That would be great. So, but eventually they have to take a look at their phone, and they would have to respond to a few text messages. And every text message they respond to, they're like, okay, fine, I guess I gotta respond to this. And they're giving coins out. They're taking coins out of their bag and they're giving it to people. They're on the way to work at the deli. The person at the deli sees them and asks them way more questions, and they're nice, cordial, kind, but that exchange, they kind of had to muster up some energy and some positivity for that exchange. They're very happy for it, but they had to give some coins out. On their way to work, instead of saying hi to everybody, they say hi to a select few people that they enjoy being around. And they don't really want to say hi to everybody, so they avoid maybe their boss's office or something like that. And so they get to their desk and they're happy they made it to their desk. They had to give it a few coins on the way. And here comes Johnny over here talking about the birthday party and that there's a birthday party. And they're like, oh, great, the birthday party. So they go to the birthday party and they're giving out coins left and right. And by the time they get home that day, their bag of coins is fairly empty. They've given away a lot of their energy. Being around people consumes energy for them, and they need some more time alone and relaxation to fill up the bag again. So that would be somebody who, if you gravitate towards one or the other, you gravitate towards a tendency to be the story I just told, to be more introverted. Introverted prefers solidarity and also more reserved. Extroverted is outgoing and more energetic. So you fit somewhere on this continuum. I'll grade myself on these so you can kind of see my self-evaluation. When it comes to inventive and curious, I'm probably a 9 out of 10. I love going new places, love seeing new things. When it comes to be efficient and organized, if this is a 10 on conscientiousness, I'm probably about a 7 or an 8. I'm somewhat careless, but I'm more orderly and industrious. When it comes to extroversion, I'm probably about a 4, gravitating more towards introversion. Sorry, I'm a 4 on this side. More introverted than extroverted. Here's a fun one, agreeableness. The opposite of agreeableness is disagreeable. I think it's just disagreeable. And it could be disagreeableness too. But so those who are agreeable are friendly and compassionate. And being friendly and compassionate helps you make new friends. It helps you interview well. There's a lot of great things about being friendly and compassionate. Yeah, being overly friendly and compassionate often, sometimes you get bitter because maybe you feel like you're the one being friendly and compassionate all the time. You're always giving of yourself. You're always agreeing with people. You're always trying to get people to get along. You don't like conflict, all this kind of stuff. So that would be somebody who's more agreeable. There's a good thing to it, and there's also a downside to it. All of these have good things and bad things to it, upsides and downsides. And somebody who's disagreeable, if I said to you, I don't see anyone's camera that's on right now, but if I said to somebody, hey, an elephant would be a good pet. And somebody said, yeah, I can see how an elephant would be a good pet. When it's cute, you got the little ears and this kind of stuff. That's a person that's agreeable. The person that looks at me and goes, an elephant would be like, what are you smoking? No way an elephant would be a good pet. Stop. Like, no, it wouldn't be a good pet. I mean, it's a terminology that people use just to kind of group that. But I would think that people that are high on agreeableness want other people to like them, is a good way to say it. When you think of a people pleaser, it tends to have a negative connotation to it. A person who's high on agreeableness, that's not necessarily a negative thing. But you're right, you might fall into the trap of trying too hard to make other people like you. And that could build up bitterness. So yeah, that's a way of saying it. But now that you can call a people pleaser instead of a derogatory term. You can just know that that's a personality trait of theirs, that they're just high on agreeableness. And that's, can be very good because those people tend to make more friends versus the disagreeable type. They're a bit more likable. When we go back to the leadership traits of what do we want in leaders? Well, we sort of want leaders that are likable. You know what I mean? So we might want leaders who are a bit more agreeable than leaders that challenge everything and are detached from everything, or cynical and have, they just want to argue. And again, that's the extreme of being disagreeable in a sense. So as a professor, much to my chagrin in a sense, I'm a bit more agreeable than I would be disagreeable. Yet I'm working on my ability to challenge, and say, no, I disagree with that. It's hard for me. And I don't love conflict. And in essence, really being rigorous in academia means you have to learn how to debate. You have to challenge people's suppositions. You have to argue points. You have to debate other people's evidence and facts. And you really have to be disagreeable in some sense, like a lawyer in a way. And so I'm working on my ability to be more formidably disagreeable. I know it's kind of weird to say, but a ratio that I talk about often, that if you're in a friendship, a good friendship, when I say good friendship, hopefully all of you know what that means. These are people that have known each other for a long time. They spend time together. They know each other. A good friend of yours, you only really want them to agree with you, and you want to be agreeable about 8 out of every 10 interactions. So look at it that way. Because if 10 out of 10 interactions, they're just agreeing with everything you say, you just like, well, come on, man, like challenge me. What's going on? So every once in a while, we want people to sharpen us and to disagree and to make us better and to engage us in some kind of formidable argument. So it's not always fun to be around people who are just agreeable all the time. So again, the ratio is about, for every 10 interactions, 8 of them should be, fairly positive, agreeable. 2 of them should have a little bit of conflict. I disagree. I don't like the way you stack the dishes. I'm fine with it, most times, but other times I don't necessarily like it. If you think about it the other way around, if 8 out of 10 interactions were disagreeable, you wouldn't want to hang out with that person. It's like, okay, like enough. Everything I do seems to be a problem with you. You only agree with about 2 out of every 10 things I do, so I don't even want to hang out with you. You're too disagreeable. Go ahead. Well said. Think about alligator skin like alligator. And those people get it. And think about Steve Jobs' emotional intelligence as he reacted to somebody who clearly was against him in a way. The perfect downside of being too agreeable, because sometimes people that have that agreeable nature, what happens is they build up resentment and bitterness over time. And to engage in conflict, and we do a workshop with the internship class about conflict management and how to do a healthy engagement of conflict and how to collaborate in certain ways, not just accommodate. Yeah, I'll do what you need me to do, but instead, no, I don't want you to do that. I think there's a better way, and let me explain why. Let me tell you what's going on with me and what I'm doing here. And so if you've ever seen this movie Office Space, there's a character in Office Space where the guy makes him do all the TPS reports. His name's like Milton or something. And he ends up at the end of the movie just super bitter, and his office is in the basement, and he ends up burning the whole place down because he's just like, it was a pushover, and he just had enough and he just lost it. Wise, you're adapting to the situation and the circumstance. So I think it would be shrewd for all of us to say, hey, I behave one way at home with my family and friends, and at work I try to temper the behaviors a little bit because I know what's more socially acceptable here at work, and I don't want to yet portray myself as such an agreeable type. It tends to be high level leaders in some way or another have to learn how to be more disagreeable, because if you're going to make decisions, difficult decisions, you have to challenge people in order for them to give you what you need. Sometimes being friendly and compassionate in high stakes situations where major decisions need to be made and everybody just wants to agree with the boss because you're the boss and you say we should go this direction, everyone's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. That is not always the best way for a team or a group and organization to make decisions. And also, if somebody presents an idea and you just agree with it all the time and you don't challenge their basis, why did you want this idea? What are the facts? What's the history of this idea? Has it worked in the past? Can you give me some examples? If you can't ask those questions as a leader, then you're probably not bringing out the best in some of your staff members. So moving away, I'm not saying this is tough, because being friendly and compassionate is always a good characteristic to have. Yet we have to think through how that characteristic could be a detriment to our ability to lead effectively in the future. Strengths and weaknesses. The last one, which is one of my favorites in a sense, because I have 3 girls at times, and even for myself, I tend to fall victim to this. It's neuroticism, is how you pronounce it. And really what it is emotional instability. Meaning at times, I'll just give an example. Let's say that I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking food and I'm having a great day and I'm listening to my, leadership textbook over here and I'm preparing for class. And the next thing you know, I spill the coffee and then my dog, decides to make a mess. And then my kid comes running in the room and falls down and starts crying. And then I go from I'm having a great day to I'm just losing it. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I start yelling and all this kind of stuff. This is not a true story, so this isn't how I act. But if that's how my days go, from being really happy to now being really angry in a matter of seconds, and I fluctuate because I'm emotionally unstable, I would be high on neuroticism. This isn't narcissism, it's neuroticism. It sounds similar, but it's not. So sensitive and nervous would be people who are high on neuroticism versus somebody who's secure and confident, somebody who doesn't fluctuate as much in their emotions throughout the day. So somebody's pretty, let's call it a stoic, would be a good example of somebody who's not narcissistic, not sorry, narcissistic, I said it, not neurotic. Somebody who's low on neuroticism is stoic, really low. Somebody who's high on neuroticism is emotionally unstable, is going from one emotion to the next emotion. So that's the last personality characteristic. And hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I've always found that to be one that people enjoy. So I want to move to the motivations to lead because it is a fascinating one. And then I want to end on charisma. We have about 10 minutes left. So just bear with me as I try to present this content. This is an important question. What are people's motives to lead? Tenacity and resilience, leadership motives, is one of them. The motive to lead, obviously, it's one we just talked about, the power motive, and the drive and achievement motive. I think we're going to talk about each one of these. Effective leaders have frequently been distinguished by their motives and needs. Leaders have an intense desire to occupy a position of responsibility for others and to control them, for others and to control them. Effective leaders have a strong need to control resources. So, what is your motivation to lead? There's that book called The Motive. And these four different things to have tenacity and resilience, you just like challenges and you like demonstrating your tenacity and resilience. You have a drive for achievement and you have a power motive. These are just some things to think about. So the types of motivations to lead have been identified as affective identity, social normative, and non-calculative. These are cool to think about. So you say to yourself, you see a person that's in a leadership position, maybe you're in a leadership position, you're like, well, why am I here? Why am I motivated to do this? Why am I motivated to teach a class on leadership right now? Why am I motivated to be a manager at my job? Why am I motivated to apply for that supervisor position? Well, here are three reasons. Number one, affective identity is enjoying the leadership role. You come alive in this role. You get positive emotions when you're in a role of leadership. That's affective identity. Social normative was interesting is viewing leadership as a responsibility and duty. Not only, let's just say you may not enjoy your role, but you still want to be a leader because you feel like this is your civic duty to your neighborhood to be on the board of the HOA. Like you just feel as if this is your duty. So that's a social normative role. A non-calculative is viewing leadership positively despite potential costs. So these are all reasons you view leadership positively, even though it might be difficult. You enjoy the leadership role itself, and you view leadership as a responsibility and duty. These are three motivations to lead that have been identified. So there's the power motive. This is another one. So why do people, what's their motive to lead? And then, of course, the power motive is a little bit different. Leaders with high power motives have three dominant characteristics. They act with vigor and determination to exert their power. You may hear me say exert power, and that's not always a bad thing. So learning how to exert the power wisely in a leadership position is a good thing. Your motive to exert power negatively is obviously not a good thing. So here's another one. They invest much time in thinking about ways to alter the behavior and thinking of others. It's a fascinating one. You think about it, if I invest a lot of time into altering the behaviors and thinking of others, that doesn't sound good. It's almost like you're plotting and planning to change others' minds. Yet, if you do think about that often, you might come up with some constructive ways to get people to attain goals. You might learn how to use what is reward power and coercive power and legitimate power to help your organization accomplish their goals. So there could be a good side, there could be a bad side to that. The power motive, they care about their personal standing with those around them. So this is one that might be fascinating. And I think we talked last class about how somebody will say, well, I'm the boss, and I need you to see me as the boss, and therefore I have the power. They go into a social setting. And again, this is somebody they care about the personal standing with those around them. And they make sure people know that they're a business owner. And you're not a business, I'm a business owner. I'm this person. They make sure people know that they're a leader and they have subordinates on their team. Within the first 5 minutes of talking to people like this, you could tell that they're trying to demonstrate to you their social status as a leader. And that's a motive. They're motivated to dominate in social realms because they have power at work or power in leadership. But as you can tell, that's it's a motive, a power motive. Is it a good one? That's up to you to determine. So I find that those interesting. More about power. Personalized power motive. Seek power to further their own interests. Do not worry about everybody liking them. Recognize that as you acquire power, you also acquire enemies. That's a personalized power motive. Socialized power motive, very similar to personalized and socialized charismatics. Socialized power motive. Seek power to achieve organizational goals or vision. The term socialized means that the leader uses power primarily to help others. almost identical to socialized versus personal charismatics. Here are just some other cognitive factors of leaders. Insight into people and situations, knowledge of the business or group task, creativity is a big one. Your ability to be cognitively intelligent, the fluidity of your brain and how it works, and being quick to think about certain things, quick to answer, having witty comments. These are all signs of cognitive fluidity. And then this other one says farsightedness and conceptual thinking. Conceptual thinking is thinking in the big picture. If I make this chess move and this person makes this chess move, then I'm going to make this chess move. Like, you already know ahead of time the conceptual reality of decisions, like game theory. So that's being a conceptual thinker. The ability to communicate is important. You reflect on some of these leaders that one might consider to be heroes and think about their lives